In the distant past, the village of Marukami faces an impending attack from the neighboring army, to whom the village is a vassal. This happens after the village leader, Lord Marukami, refuses to allow the country's ruler to build a castle there. A messenger delivers the severed head of Yōji Minamimaru, Lord Marukami's most loyal vassal, as punishment for defying direct orders from the neighbor. Lord Marukami, always wearing a hood and mask to conceal his face, prepares for battle. When the enemy charges with overwhelming numbers, Lord Marukami and a few of his men put their hands together and create miniature explosions. In mere seconds, it annihilates all the invaders. The fallen soldiers lie on the ground covered in blood, with their bodies cut into the shape of small spheres. In the present, a university student named Yōji Minamimaru, called Nanmaru by his friends, demonstrates his ability to cut perfect tiny holes in paper by putting his hands together and shouting. His friends are amazed, but a girl named Aki remains unimpressed. She even tells him to focus on finding a job. Next, Nanmaru is summoned by his professor, Masami Marukami. When he goes to meet the professor, he encounters Emi, the professor's assistant. Emi asks if he has any close relatives connected to the professor, but Nanmaru, knowing little about his family, says no. Meanwhile, a girl named Sachiko, who lives in Marukawa town, wakes up from recurring nightmares of falling into a void. Her grandmother tells her that many people in their town are having similar nightmares, hinting at a possible connection. Next, Emi contacts Nanmaru and learns about his unique abilities. She informs him that he and the professor share a common ancestor. She explains that the professor disappeared after traveling to the Marukami village to investigate the murder of Yōji Minamimaru and Lord Marukami of Forcefield. Before his disappearance, the professor had tasked a student, Tagaya, with constructing a model of the Marukami mountainous village, now called Marukawa town. Emi recounts the story of Lord Marukami, who is now believed to have betrayed the neighboring ruler and killed him. However, the professor doubted this version, believing instead that Lord Marukami attacked the neighbor to avenge his most trusted vassal, Yōji Minamimaru. The professor's team remains puzzled about how the small population of Marukami defeated the neighbor's massive army, a mystery that still baffles them. Meanwhile, the president of a construction company in Marukawa town is killed by a mysterious person who appears to have abilities similar to Nanmaru's. The next day, Emi informs Nanmaru that the professor has developed an ability like his. She shows him a hole the professor made in a glass, which is larger than the ones Nanmaru creates. The professor's wife reveals that he has made multiple holes in his study. Shocked, they learn about the murder in Marukawa town and decide to go there. In a flashback, Lord Marukami is shown killing the leader of the neighboring army with his ability. His fingers appear elongated and are engraved with strange marks. Next, it is revealed that the construction company president wanted to build a golf course in the mountains, a plan that was not well received by the locals. Next, the students and Emi arrive in Marukawa town and notice the old flag of the Marukami clan. The flag depicts a hand, a magpie bird, and a sphere in the middle, but its meaning remains unknown. Tagaya explains that Yōji Minamimaru was killed before he could have children. To ensure the Minamimaru family line continued, Lord Marukami sent his youngest child to be adopted by the Minamimaru family. This means that all Minamimaru descendants are actually Marukami's. Next, the group searches for the professor, but no one has seen him. Then, Nanmaru and Tagaya visit a restaurant where they meet Sachiko. She tells them about the Tanabata festival, which lasts for 7 days. The locals, excited to learn Nanmaru's last name, prepare a feast to celebrate his arrival. Later, Tagaya explains that the Tanabata festival celebrates the reunion of the star lovers Altair and Vega, who are separated by the Milky Way galaxy. The next day, Sachiko meets Nanmaru and observes his ability. Then she warns him that while the people in the town seem friendly, they might be hiding something, and she apologizes in advance. Next, Emi gathers the students and informs them that despite the town's friendliness, something is suspicious. She suspects the townspeople may have imprisoned the professor. Then, Sachiko's older brother Takashi, wearing a beanie hat, visits her. However, both she and her grandmother coldly send him away. That night, on the first evening of the Tanabata festival, Sachiko speaks privately with Nanmaru. She explains that in the village, there are 2 types of people with special abilities. The first are called within reach, like Nanmaru, and the second are window openers, like her. She adds that within reach, individuals are chosen to become priests of Mount Marukami. Although she doesn't fully understand the power of the window openers, she tells him they always give her nightmares. Next, Emi spots a bonfire on top of Mount Marukami and heads there with Tagaya to investigate, while another student, Sakugari, stays behind. There they witness people performing a ritual, forming circles, holding torches and dancing. All of them have their faces covered. In the middle, a figure dressed exactly like Lord Marukami stands and makes one of the 7 stones planted on the mountain disappear. Meanwhile, Takashi gets into a fight with 3 men. When they beat him and pull off his hat, they see a strange red stone embedded in his forehead. This one looks even worse than Lil Uzi Vert's. Takashi then uses his powers to cut each of their legs. Back at the mountain, Emi and Tagaya are caught by the ritual participants. However, when the group learns that Emi and Tagaya haven't seen much, they let them go, claiming it is just a tradition. In the morning, the group decides to return home, but Emi insists on staying behind. After the students leave for Tokyo, Takashi follows them and meets Nanmaru and his friend Aki. Takashi teaches Nanmaru how to create larger holes and demonstrates his own ability to create a black sphere. He reveals that he too is one of the within reach. The black sphere, whenever it comes into contact with an object, makes the same volume of the object disappear. After some practice, Nanmaru manages to create a black sphere as well and becomes excited, but neither of them realizes that Aki is secretly watching. That night, Sachiko texts Nanmaru, warning him to stay away from her brother. The next day, Emi receives a call from the professor, who tells her he is safe but insists that she return to the university for her own safety. Next, a mysterious man wearing a hat and covering his face attends a council meeting from a distance. His long, marked hands resemble those of Lord Marukami. When he places his hands on a glass, a massive black sphere appears in the room and kills a councilman by cutting off half his body. At night, Emi returns to the university and Nanmaru shows his new abilities to the group. They express concern and suggest that Takashi might be responsible for the murder in Marukawa town. Meanwhile, Sachiko visits her great-uncle, who has hands identical to Lord Marukami's, but with a much larger red stone embedded in his forehead compared to Takashi's. She shares her worries, telling him that she has seen strange people in suits searching for individuals who are within reach. Meanwhile, the man who ordered the assassination of the councilman, known as the Baron, is impressed by how precise the within-reach assassin is. However, his subordinate informs him that the police have started an investigation. Next, Takashi uses Nanmaru to demonstrate his abilities to a crowd in order to earn money. But after overusing his powers, Nanmaru begins to develop a red stone on his forehead. Thinking it is just a pimple, Nanmaru dismisses it and covers it with his hair. Meanwhile, Emi, Tagaya, and Sakugari begin researching the purpose of the Tanabata festival. Next, Aki reveals to Nanmaru that Takashi and his employer are exploiting him for profit by making him perform for large audiences. She tells him she wants to become a detective journalist and plans to use his story as her breakthrough. Nanmaru confronts Takashi and tells him he no longer wants to use his powers in this way. Next, the man who killed the councilman visits Sachiko during her mother's funeral anniversary. It is revealed that his name is Yoriyuki Marukami. He tells her that he will put an end to the nightmares they have been suffering and admits that he was the one who killed the construction company president. Yoriyuki is accompanied by the men in suits, who are revealed to be the Baron's subordinates. Later, Yoriyuki visits the Baron and upon learning of his plan to control all people within reach, warns him to back off. He kills the Baron's men, declaring that he will serve the Baron for a while, but will not let him control the others. Yoriyuki then reveals his monstrous face distorted beyond recognition. The large red stone on his forehead demonstrates what happens to those within reach who use their powers too frequently. Next, Takashi continues performing his abilities for people, drawing the attention of the villagers from Marukami who try to stop him from exposing their secret. However, he refuses to listen, and Yoriyuki suddenly appears, taking Takashi away. Later, Sachiko speaks with Nanmaru about the dangers of his power. She shows him the scars on her back, caused by her brother when they were children. She explains that their father was a strict man who wanted Takashi to become the best. Takashi trained under Yoriyuki before his appearance was disfigured. Although Takashi became highly skilled, their mother eventually sent him away after their father was killed. Sachiko reveals that their mother uses the sphere on herself soon after. Next, Aki teams up with a police detective named Sato, informing him that a supernatural force is behind the recent murders. That night, Nanmaru has a nightmare where he and Sachiko are about to go beyond an open window. She warns him not to go beyond the window, and he suddenly wakes up. In the morning, Aki and Sato sneak into a building where Yoriyuki demonstrates his immense powers by killing a high-ranking government official in front of Takashi. However, Aki and Sato are caught by the Baron's men. Yoriyuki, indifferent to their presence, creates a massive black sphere that makes several buildings disappear. He tells Takashi that he will end the nightmares for the people of Marukami town once and for all. That night, Nanmaru has another nightmare where he is floating in a void. He sees the people of Marukami performing the ritual again. Later, Yoriyuki meets with the Baron's men and declares he is no longer working for the Baron. Takashi informs Nanmaru that Aki and Sato are being held hostage by the Baron's men. Nanmaru goes to the location and rescues them using his powers, but the stone in his forehead continues to grow larger. Later, Yoriyuki visits the Baron, thanks him for everything, and then uses his power to create the largest black sphere ever seen. The sphere causes an entire town to disappear, leaving a massive hole in the city. Realizing that Yoriyuki cannot be controlled, the Baron rushes to warn the Prime Minister. Next, the government issues a statement urging citizens to stay home, as they are unsure of the cause of the bizarre incidents. Emi, her students, Aki, and Nanmaru decide to travel to Marukami town to investigate Yoriyuki's motives and stop him from causing more destruction. Once there, they meet the townspeople, including Sachiko, and head to her great-uncle's house. However, Yoriyuki and Takashi arrive at the great-uncle's house before them. Yoriyuki admits that he is responsible for the recent murders. He declares his intention to destroy the town's sacred secret before leaving this world, which he claims will end the nightmares forever. As they prepare to leave, special SWAT teams storm the area and open fire, forcing Yoriyuki and Takashi to flee. During the chaos, the SWAT team kills the great-uncle's maid, and the great-uncle eliminates one of the attackers before being shot himself. Yoriyuki also joins the fight, but as they try to escape, a fallen soldier shoots Takashi. Emi and her group arrive shortly afterward, only to find the dying great-uncle. He tells them that Yoriyuki brought the killers there, but before he can reveal more, he succumbs to his injuries. Yoriyuki escapes with the injured Takashi, but Takashi eventually dies from his wounds. Sachiko and Nanmaru later find Takashi's body, and Sachiko is heartbroken by her brother's death. Emi discovers a bloody handprint left by Yoriyuki and realizes it resembles the magpie on the town's flag. Later, Sachiko's grandmother appears and takes Nanmaru away, warning that the government is hunting people within reach. When asked who is giving the orders, she reveals that it is the current head of the town, the professor, but refuses to disclose his location. Nanmaru stays at Sachiko's place for the night, and she warns him to be cautious since 2 people within reach have died that day. Sachiko shares her thoughts, saying the loneliest thing is your own death, as only you leave this world and step beyond the window, a mysterious place she struggles to describe. She also reveals haunting dreams where she feels completely alone for what seems like eternity, except for rare moments when she senses someone waving to her from far away. Next, Emi and her students discover that the government has kept the massacre at the great-uncle's house a secret. Meanwhile, the townspeople plan to hold a meeting. At the same time, the police raid Sachiko's house, but she and Nanmaru manage to escape just in time. Later, the townspeople are confronted by the military, who demand they surrender Yoriyuki. The townspeople refuse, insisting they wouldn't reveal Yoriyuki's location, even if they knew where he was. Amidst the standoff, Nanmaru steps forward and tells the police that he also possesses a similar power. He explains that it is a terrifying power that humans shouldn't wield and urges them to talk with Yoriyuki instead of trying to force him. At that moment, the professor arrives on the scene. His appearance is slightly disfigured, with a red stone on his forehead. Upon seeing him, Emi collapses in shock. Later, the professor assures the police and military that he will persuade Yoriyuki to talk, believing Yoriyuki's final action will take place at Mount Marukami. The next day, the professor invites Emi, her students, and Nanmaru for a discussion. He explains that the magpie symbol on the town's flag might not originally depict a magpie bird. Since magpies were not native to the region during that time, The flag symbol might represent something else that was later misinterpreted as a magpie. Using the model that Tagaya built, the professor reveals that the mountains form the shape of a human hand and another long hand with elongated fingers, resembling Yoriyuki and Lord Marukami, with a sphere at the center. He explains that during the Tanabata festival, the setting sun aligns perfectly to reveal this hidden design. He states that no human could create such a complex shape in the mountains with this level of precision. Finally, he reveals that the ancestors, aliens locally referred to as the Kasasagi, which translates to magpies, are responsible for the creation of this formation. Over 1,000 years ago, the Kasasagi appeared and were worshipped as gods despite their strange appearance. The ritual with torches performed on the mountain was originally meant to guide the Kasasagi to land. However, after some time, the Kasasagi stopped visiting Earth, yet the people continued the ritual. This ritual became the invisible chain that binds every townsman to keep the secret and protect their mountain. This is what Yoriyuki seeks to break and what lies beyond the window. The window openers see the Kasasagi in their dreams because they are burdened with the task of waiting for their return. The flag symbolizes the gift given to select people in the town. The central sphere represents the black sphere, capable of making objects disappear, though no one knows if the Kasasagi will ever come back. Next, the group heads to Mount Marukami, where the professor explains to Nanmaru that Yoriyuki might be planning to make the mountain disappear to end the nightmares and break the chain. The professor believes Yoriyuki won't carry out his plan if people, especially the townspeople, are present on the mountain. At night, soldiers arrive and confront the professor, demanding that he hand over Yoriyuki, claiming they have run out of patience. Just as tensions escalate and a fight seems imminent, one of the soldiers kills the others and reveals himself to be Yoriyuki. Yoriyuki then explains that their power might serve as a gateway to transport them to the Kasasagi's planet, their true ancestors. He reveals that he has already created a massive black sphere above them, hidden by the darkness. Yoriyuki announces his intention to enter the sphere, tired of waiting for the Kasasagi to return. To everyone's surprise, Sachiko volunteers to go with him, wanting to leave her life behind. However, Nanmaru convinces her not to, urging her to explore the world beyond their town before stepping into an unknown place that might not even exist. With that, Yoriyuki steps into the dark sphere, which instantly makes him vanish. The others flee to avoid being caught in the sphere as it consumes the top of the mountain, leaving behind a gaping void. As time passes, life returns to normal, even better than before. The professor and Emi now live together in Marukawa town. Aki achieves her dream of becoming a freelance internet journalist and is now in a relationship with Sato. Tagaya and Sakugari continue their studies at the university, while Nanmaru starts a company where people can swap goods without using money. He stops using his ability, and the stone on his forehead disappears, returning his face to normal. Meanwhile, in Marukawa, the townspeople still perform the ritual, hoping that one day the Kasasagi will return to visit them from the Milky Way. And as for Nanmaru and Sachiko, well, let's just say their love story is only beginning. The end. Thank you for watching. Be sure to like our channel and subscribe if you enjoy content like this. Also, let us know what movie you would love us to recap for you.